Hi to all my old friends and to those of you who stumbled on here by chance. Welcome to my channel. My name is Julia. I am trying to be back and hoping to be back and do these videos more often, but I can't give promises. So let's move on from my life to today's project, which happens to be a Christmas project with stamps and dies from Picket Fence Studios, and the stamp sets are illustrated by Kelly Taylor. And I think they are beautiful and versatile. I also have a background stamp with Christmas text, and I intend to make 2 Christmas cards mixed media style. So let's just dive in and start creating. I start by stamping the poisonettas in black waterproof ink, and I bring in Distress watercolor pencils for the first time on camera. I prefer to use a brush most of the time, so I made watercolor palettes with shavings from the pencils. For these flowers we're using reddish pinks, but for the leaves we are using rustic wilderness, mowed lawn and twisted citron. I spray my chosen greens with water and start with the darkest green, rustic wilderness. I add that shadow at the base of the leaves. Blend that harsh line with water. Then I add the next medium green, mowed lawn. Blend out with water and blend in the lightest green, twisted citron at the tip of the leaves. I use water as needed to convince the colors to blend without harsh or sharp lines. For the flower petals, I start with aged mahogany at the base of each petal, and I blend it out with water. Then I add my medium red festive berries, and I add water before I blend in my lightest shade saltwater taffy at the tip of each petal. I really love this red combo for Christmas. I work my way through all of the flower petals one by one, making sure to blend with water and to use a piece of kitchen towel to mop up water when needed. For the flower centers I use an orange rusty hinge and the yellow mustard seed. Oh, and I did not spare myself any work and colored many flowers, and soon you will know why. But first, let's begin making some inky backgrounds. I'm using chalky Distress Oxide sprays in Chipped Sapphire and Blueprint Sketch, Distress Spray Stain in Salty Ocean and Uncharted Mariner, and on top I use Distress Spritz in Uncharted Mariner and Mica Stain in Sugary Gumdrop. I have 2 pieces of watercolor cardstock and I spray with water before I spray my colors, starting with the most vibrant blues, then the chalky oxides, and on top of everything I would then add the spritz in blue and the mica stain in pink. Finally, I add water and tilt the cardstock so the colors can blend, and then I make one more of these blue backgrounds. I let my backgrounds air dry, and at this point I realize that the chalky oxides made these backgrounds too pale. So I start with adding water splatters and mop them up with kitchen towel to add texture. But I wanted more darkness, so I brought out Distress inks in the same blue colors. With a soft brush, I blend in Chipped Sapphire, Blueprint Sketch and Uncharted Mariner, and I do it randomly, leaving some parts of my background untouched. I'm also using the original Distress inks because they are more dark and vibrant compared to the oxides. When I had added enough darkness, I splatter water and mop it up with kitchen towel for texture. The last touch on this background is to blend black soot ink around the edges of both panels to frame them, and to me this is the perfect inky background for my needs. Next, we're creating more images using this clever stamp set, and I start by stamping my bow and put a mask of masking paper over. Then I stamp the ribbon across my ornament, and then the ornament topper is stamped and masked before I stamp the round ornament and the string. When everything is stamped, I can remove my masks and continue with my next ornament. Here I am starting with stamping a poisonetta flower and putting a mask over it. Then I stamp the ornament, the topper and the string. And now I have two beautiful ornaments. I wanted to decorate this ornament a little bit more, so I cut a stencil for this shape out of regular paper, and I place my stencil over the ornament and bring out that background stamp with Christmas text and gold embossing powder. I stamp over my mask with embossing ink, cover with gold embossing powder and melt the powder with my heat tool. So, let's color my ornaments using my Distress watercolor pencil palettes with the same colors, but I also add my gold watercolors to the mix, and I spray with water and start by painting the ornament topper in gold, and I also paint the flower center in gold. I finish this gold spree with coloring the ribbon in gold, and then I add water to one half of the ornament and drop in color wet on wet, starting with the darkest and finishing with the lightest. And then I do the same thing to the second half of my ornament. For the flower, I skip the darkest red and just use the medium and the light shade to drop in color and blend out with water. For my sentiments, I'm using two Picket Fence die sets, one saying joy and one saying season's greetings. I cut 4 of the word joy and 4 of each letter from the season's greetings die set from black cardstock, so I can stack 4 black die cuts and get that dimension I love. I also cut the word joy from gold cardstock and season's greetings from white, and I blended 2 green inks to get the green ombre letters to top the black die cuts. Off camera, I colored and cut out 2 of this image and colored with the same green colors as I used on the letters. And then I start stacking 4 black joy die cuts on top of each other, and then I add the gold joy on top, slightly offset, to get that black shadow. And of course I did the same for the dot over the J. To save time, I already stacked all of the black letters, so all I have to do now is add the green ombre letters on top of the black, and I love the bulky dimension I get. I want more texture on my backgrounds and I want to use that text background stamp, but I only want a little text, so I made a mask of paper that will allow me to add the amount of text that I want. I mask off anything I don't want text on and I stamp that text in VersaFine embossing ink, cover with gold embossing powder and melt until it's smooth. And I do that all over both of my backgrounds. So I have backgrounds with gold text, and now is the time for putting all of my images together. I painted 4 big poisonettas and 4 small, and I fussy cut each layer of petals and put foam tape behind each layer so they together become one big dimensional flower. On each layer I put liquid glue on the foam tape to give myself some time to adjust the petals just right. I have 5 layers for the big flower and 2 layers each for the small flowers, and I start stacking the petals, layer by layer. My flowers are ready, so let's move on to the ornaments. I cut and colored extra of the flower, the bow and the ornament toppers and put foam behind them. Before I add the gold topper, I glue down that mistletoe sprig and add the topper over it, and then I add that dimensional flower. I also add a mistletoe sprig to the next ornament under the topper and add a dimensional bow. Now let's put these cards together, starting with 2 black card bases slightly bigger than the blue gold panels, and I put foam tape behind my panels and glue them to the card bases. Next I glue down my red Christmas flowers, leaving lots of room for that big joy greeting. I glue down that big gold joy word, and to match that I embossed greetings from that same stamp set in gold on black to read "Sending love, joy and peace this holiday season", and I glue those sentiments around my big word. Next I glue down both ornaments on the second card. I glue down my stacked letters spelling "Season's Greetings", and when that is done, these cards are finished. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching this long and supporting my creativity. I hope you will consider popping into my channel soon again. Until the next time, happy holiday crafting!